I was raised to believe that sharing meant love, that family meant sacrifice. But no one told me that one day, my sharing would cost me everything, even the roof over my head. My name is Ryan. I grew up in what everyone thought was a picture-perfect family. A father who worked hard, a mother who cared deeply, and a younger sister, Lily, the golden child everyone adored. When I was little, Mom used to say, "Ryan, you're the big brother. Always share with your sister, always put her first." And I did. Every single time. If she wanted my toys, I gave them. If she wanted the last cookie, I let her have it. I thought that was what good brothers did, but as the years passed, sharing turned into something heavier. It wasn't about toys or snacks anymore. It was about my space, my privacy, my dreams, and I didn't realize it back then. But my parents had already made their choice. They had already decided who mattered more. When I turned 18, I started working part-time while studying. I wanted to ease the pressure on my parents, to stand on my own feet. Every paycheck, I saved something. Meanwhile, Lily never had to lift a finger. She got new clothes, new phones, money whenever she wanted. Still, I never complained. I thought that's what family was about, helping each other. But then, after Dad retired, things shifted. The house felt heavier, quieter. I began paying bills silently, covering groceries without being asked. I thought they noticed. I thought they appreciated it, until one evening I overheard Mom whisper to Dad, "Ryan is responsible, but Lily will always need us. We'll have to think about her future first." That one line broke something inside me. I stood frozen in the hallway, pretending not to hear, pretending not to care. But from that moment I started seeing things differently. 2 years later, I bought my first house. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was mine. Every inch earned through sleepless nights and skipped meals. When I showed it to my parents, they smiled proudly. Even Lily said, "Wow, not bad, big brother." For once I felt like I'd done something worthy of respect. But it didn't last long. A few weeks later, Mom started dropping comments like, "This place feels too big for one person, don't you think?" Dad would laugh and say, "Maybe Lily could stay here for a while just until she finds her footing." I thought they were joking. I even laughed along. But one morning, I came home from work and found Lily's boxes piled in the living room. She had moved in. Without asking, I confronted her, trying to stay calm. "Lily, you can't just move in here without talking to me first." She rolled her eyes and said, "Mom said it's fine. You've always shared everything with me. Why should this be any different?" That sentence hit me harder than any slap could. What's changed? Everything. Within days, my peaceful home turned into chaos. She threw parties, left the kitchen a mess, used my things like they were hers. I tried to talk to my parents, but they defended her. "She's your sister, Ryan. Family is about patience and sacrifice." That word, sacrifice, used to mean love to me. Now it sounded like punishment. And then, one morning, everything exploded. I woke up to find my drawer open, the one where I kept my house papers. They were gone. I searched every room, panic rising in my chest. When I asked Lily, she said casually, "Oh, Mom took them. She said she needed to check something." I rushed to my parents' place. The moment I walked in, I saw the documents lying on the table with a pen beside them. Dad looked at me calmly and said, "Ryan, we've been thinking. It's only fair if Lily's name is added to the deed. You're both our children. You should share the house." For a few seconds, I couldn't even speak. My throat tightened. "Are you serious?" I asked. "I bought that house with my own money." Mom's expression hardened. "Don't talk to your father like that. We taught you to share. Why are you being so greedy?" Greedy. The word echoed in my mind like a curse. They weren't asking. They were demanding. They wanted me to hand over the one thing I'd built, the one thing that gave me freedom. I walked out that day without saying another word. I didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't cry. I just left. But something inside me had changed forever. The son who always shared, always obeyed, always gave. He died that day, because I finally understood the truth. They never wanted me to share. They wanted me to surrender, and that I would never do again. After that day, everything between us changed. The warm, easy conversations disappeared. Every call from my parents felt like an obligation, every visit like a test. I tried to keep my distance, tried to focus on my work and the small peace my house once gave me. But peace doesn't last long when people are determined to take it away from you. Lily stayed in the house even after I told her I wanted her out. She acted like it was hers, like she was doing me a favor by keeping it alive. She'd say things like, "You're never home anyway, Ryan. Why does it matter if I use your room?" Or, "Stop acting like a landlord, you're my brother." I thought maybe, if I stayed quiet, they'd get bored and leave. But silence doesn't solve betrayal. It feeds it. One night I came home late after working a double shift. As I walked in, I found a group of strangers laughing in my living room, drinking from my glasses, their shoes on my carpet. Lily was sitting on the couch like a queen. When she saw me, she just smiled and said, "Relax, we're celebrating. I got a new job." My voice was low, but it cracked. "You're celebrating with my food, in my house, without even asking?" She rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, stop being dramatic. You act like you own this place." That was it. The last thread of patience snapped. I told everyone to get out. She started yelling. Her friends called me names, but I didn't care. I kicked them all out that night and locked the door behind them. Lily stormed out saying, "You'll regret this. Mom and Dad won't let you get away with it." And she was right. They didn't. The next morning I woke up to a message from Mom. "Ryan, how could you treat your sister like that? She told us everything. We're coming over." When they arrived, they didn't come to talk. They came to attack. Mom started shouting before she even sat down. "We raised you better than this. She's your sister, not some stranger." Dad stood behind her, silent but stern. I tried to explain calmly that I'd been patient, that I'd given enough. But no one wanted to listen. Mom's voice cut through me like a blade. "If this is how you treat family, then maybe you don't deserve a family at all." I remember standing there, watching her face twist with anger, wondering how love could turn so cruel. I looked at Dad, hoping for support, but he just said, "We're disappointed, son. Maybe it's best if you leave the house to Lily for a while. You can stay with a friend until things cool down." For a second I thought I'd misheard. Leave my own house? I stared at them, my hands shaking. "You want me to leave my house, the one I paid for? The one I built?" Dad didn't even blink. "Just for a while," he said, like he was offering a kind favor. Something inside me cracked wide open. I laughed, not out of humor but disbelief. "You've spent my whole life teaching me to share, to give, to put everyone else first. But when it's finally about me, about what gets mine, you cannot stand it, can you?" No one answered. Mom just crossed her arms and looked away. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my empty room, surrounded by the silence of my own home, and realized the truth. I didn't have a family anymore. Just people who used that word to control me. The next morning, I made a decision. I didn't tell anyone. I went to the land registry office and checked something I had never thought to check before. Ownership. And there it was. My name was still the only one on the deed. They hadn't changed it yet. That's when I understood. They wanted me gone so they could do it quietly without my consent. I decided I wouldn't let that happen. Not this time. That evening when I got back home, I found Lily already packing her bags. She looked at me with fake tears and said, "I hope you're happy. You broke this family." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "No, Lily, you broke it when you decided that love was ownership." She didn't reply. She just walked past me, slamming the door behind her. When the echo faded, the house felt different, still heavy, but finally mine again. For a few days, I thought it was over. I thought they'd finally let it go. But I was wrong, because just when I started to breathe again, a letter arrived from my parents' lawyer. They were suing me. The letter shook in my hands. My own parents suing me. For what? I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the legal words that blurred together on the page. Joint ownership, family contribution, rightful share. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. They were claiming that the house I bought, the house I built with my own savings, was family property. I called Dad immediately. He didn't even sound surprised. "Ryan," he said calmly, "this doesn't have to turn ugly. Just add your sister's name to the deed and we'll withdraw the case." I was speechless for a moment. Then I said quietly, "You're really doing this?" His voice hardened. "Don't make us your enemies, son. We're just trying to make things fair." Fair. That word again. The same word they used to justify every injustice they ever did to me. After that call, I didn't pick up when they tried again. I didn't answer texts. I shut everything off. My heart wasn't just broken anymore. It was numb. I didn't know what hurt more, losing my parents' cow love or realizing maybe it was never unconditional to begin with. Days passed like shadows. I went to work, came home, stared at the walls that once felt like victory and now felt like a battlefield. My lawyer, an old friend named Daniel, listened to everything and said softly, "Ryan, they don't have a legal case. The house is yours, but they'll drag you through hell emotionally. Be ready for that." He was right. The next few weeks were pure torture. My relatives started calling, saying I'd turned selfish, that I was breaking the family apart. My aunts, uncles, even cousins, people who'd never once visited me, all suddenly had opinions. "Your parents are getting old, Ryan," one of them said. "Why are you being so cold?" Another added, "A house is just walls, but blood is forever." They all said the same thing, that I should just share. No one ever asked what I'd already shared. Then, one morning, my mom showed up at my door. No call, no warning. She stood there with tearful eyes, holding a tray of food like she used to when I was a kid. For a moment, I wanted to believe it was over, that maybe she'd come to make peace. I let her in. She sat down quietly, looked around the house, and said softly, "You've done well, Ryan. I'm proud of you." I felt my throat tighten. "Then why are you trying to take this away from me?" She sighed, setting the tray on the table. "You don't understand. This isn't about money or property. It's about family. Lily's struggling. She needs security. You've always been stronger. You can rebuild. She can't." I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt anger. "You're asking me to give up everything because she's weaker? That's not love, Mom. That's manipulation." Her eyes flashed. "Watch your tone. I'm still your mother." Something inside me broke again. Not from sadness this time, but from realization. "Then act like one," I said quietly. She stood up without another word, her face tight with anger, and walked out. The door closed behind her, and I felt the last tie between us snap. A week later I got a call from Daniel. "The court hearing's been canceled," he said. "Your parents withdrew the case." I was confused. "Why? What happened?" He hesitated. "You didn't hear this from me, but your dad's pension account got flagged. Someone reported that the money he used to support the house was actually withdrawn for Lily Ma's personal expenses. They don't have proof that they ever contributed to your house payments. The court saw that." I didn't say anything for a long moment. I didn't feel happy or victorious, just empty. All that fighting, all that pain, for nothing. That evening I went for a walk. The air was cold, quiet. Every streetlight flickered like an old memory. I realized that sometimes winning doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like standing alone in silence, realizing you've lost everything you once loved. When I came home, I saw something strange on my doorstep. A letter. No return address. Just my name in handwriting I knew too well. It was from Lily. Inside, there was no apology. Just one line. "Mom and Dad say I ruined everything, but you started it when you stopped sharing." I folded the letter carefully, put it away, and whispered to myself, "No, Lily. I stopped surrendering." That night, I finally locked every door in the house, not just the physical ones, but the emotional ones too. For the first time, it felt like I truly owned my home. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. People like them don't stop when they lose. They regroup, they plan. And I was right. Because a month later, I found out they had one final plan. One that would almost destroy me for good. It started with a phone call from my aunt. Her voice trembled when she said, "Ryan, your parents aren't doing well. You should come home." For a moment, every bit of anger I'd built up fell apart. No matter what had happened, they were still my parents. I grabbed my keys and drove to their house. The whole ride there, I kept imagining the worst. Maybe Dad had fallen sick. Maybe Mom was in the hospital. My heart raced. When I arrived, the lights were dim and the house felt colder than I remembered. I walked in and called out, "Mom? Dad?" No answer, just the faint sound of whispering from the living room. As I stepped closer, I saw them both sitting there, perfectly fine, sipping tea. My aunt was there too. The way they looked up at me told me everything. This wasn't about sickness. It was a setup. Dad put down his cup and said, "We need to talk, Ryan." I didn't sit. "About what?" Mom leaned forward, her tone calm but cold. "We're selling this house." My stomach dropped. "Selling it? You can't. It's yours, not mine. Why would you—" Dad interrupted. "Not this one. Yours." The room went silent. I could hear my heartbeat. Mom continued, "We found a buyer who's willing to pay a good price. You can use the money to buy something smaller, and Lily can finally have some stability." I almost laughed. "You're out of your minds," I said, my voice trembling. "You don't even own my house. You tried to take it once already. You really want to do this again?" Mom's tone sharpened. "We raised you, Ryan. You owe us everything you have. Without us, you wouldn't even be standing here." I felt something inside me snap. "You're right," I said. "You raised me. You fed me. You taught me values. But you also taught me to ignore my own worth, to destroy my own peace, just to keep everyone else comfortable. And I'm done living like that." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You will respect your mother." I looked him in the eye. "Respect is earned, not demanded." Mom stood up, shaking her head. "You've changed, Ryan. You're not the son we raised." And for the first time I smiled, not with joy but with clarity. "Exactly." I turned and left. My aunt called after me, begging me not to walk out like that, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. That night I went home and found my door unlocked. My chest tightened. When I stepped inside, everything was in disarray. Drawers open, files scattered, photos missing. It felt like my house had been searched, violated. I checked my documents, the deed, the loan papers, the receipts, and thank God they were still there. But a framed photo of me and my parents was gone. Just that one. I didn't even have to guess who did it. Later, my neighbor, an elderly man named Peter, called me over. "Ryan," he said, "your father and sister came by earlier. They were asking questions about your schedule, when you're home, when you're not. I didn't like the way they sounded, so I thought you should know." I thanked him, but inside, I felt sick. My own family was trying to find new ways to corner me. I decided to install security cameras the next morning. I couldn't believe it had come to this, protecting my own home from the people who once tucked me into bed. A few days passed quietly, too quietly, and then the next storm hit. A letter came from the local property board. It said a complaint had been filed against me, an illegal ownership claim. According to the report, I'd supposedly bought the house with money borrowed from my father's pension fund. That was a lie. But it was smart. They were trying to make it official, to twist the story so they'd have a chance to seize it legally. My lawyer was furious. "They're desperate," Daniel said. "We'll fight this. Don't worry." But I did worry. I didn't sleep for days. The thought of losing everything I built, not because of strangers, but because of my own blood, haunted me. Then one morning, I got a message from an unknown number. It was a photo. My house, taken from the outside. Underneath the text, "You can't protect what doesn't belong to you." My hands went cold. I stared at that message, realizing just how far they were willing to go. I knew then this wasn't just about money or property anymore. This was about control, about punishment, and if they wanted a war, they were about to get one. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't the quiet, obedient son who gave everything away. I was done being their victim. That night, I started my plan. A plan not to fight them with anger, but with truth. Because I had proof of everything they'd done. And this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my desk, every memory flashing through my mind. The lectures about sharing, the guilt trips, the manipulation. Every word they ever used against me suddenly became evidence. I opened my laptop and started collecting everything: text messages, voice notes, bank receipts, screenshots of every transaction I ever made for that house. I had it all. By dawn, I had a full folder of proof. Proof that the house was mine, that I'd paid every bill, every tax, every repair cost. Proof that my parents had never contributed a single cent. But more than that, I had messages where they admitted what they were trying to do. One text from Mom read, "Once it's in Lily's name, he'll calm down. He always does." That was all I needed. The next day, I met Daniel again. He looked through everything and said, "Ryan, this isn't just defense anymore. This is evidence of fraud. We can shut them down for good." For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Quiet, steady power. We filed a formal counterclaim, not just to protect the house, but to expose the lies behind their complaint. I wasn't doing it for revenge. I was doing it for truth. For my peace. But even with the case in motion, I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. These were my parents, the people who raised me. How did it come to this? How did love turn into a battlefield? A week later, I got a call from Lily. Her voice was trembling, but not from guilt, from anger. "How could you?" she shouted. "You dragged our parents into court? You're ruining their reputation?" I took a deep breath. "I'm just finishing it," she laughed bitterly. "You think this makes you strong? You're pathetic. You'll always be alone." I didn't answer. I just said, "Better alone than surrounded by people who only know how to take." And I hung up. After that, silence. Weeks of silence. It was like they had vanished. I went to work, came home, tried to rebuild my routine. But the loneliness hit harder than I expected. You can win a war and still lose the feeling of home. Then one evening, I came home and found a note slipped under my door. It was short, in Dad's handwriting. "We didn't mean for it to go this far. Please come see us. Mom isn't well." My chest tightened again. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to assume it was another trap. But another part of me, the part that still remembered sitting at the dinner table as a kid, couldn't. I went. When I arrived, Mom looked older. Her eyes were tired, her hands shaking slightly as she poured tea. The silence in the room felt different this time. Not cold, but hollow. Dad spoke first. "We're dropping everything," he said. "The case, the claim, all of it. We can't keep doing this." I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight. "Why now?" I asked quietly. Mom looked down at her hands. "Because we lost you. And somehow that became harder to live with than losing a house." For a long time, none of us spoke. The only sound was the faint ticking of the old wall clock. Then she said something that broke me. "We thought we were protecting Lily. But the truth is, we ruined both of you." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the people who once taught me love, and also taught me how easily it can twist. We talked for hours that night. No shouting, no blaming, just quiet truth. They admitted their mistakes. I admitted my pain. There was no real apology, Not in words, at least, but there was something else. A softness I hadn't seen in years. Before I left, Dad said, "We can't undo what we did, but I hope one day you'll forgive us." I didn't promise anything. I just said, "Maybe. One day." When I got home, I stood in the middle of my house and finally felt something I hadn't tea in so long: peace. It wasn't full, it wasn't complete, but it was enough to breathe again. A few weeks later, the court officially dismissed all claims. My ownership was confirmed. The case was over. But closure doesn't mean healing. Healing takes longer. I didn't cut my parents off, but I kept my distance. Calls became less frequent, visits shorter, conversations gentler. Lily, though, never spoke to me again. She moved to another city, and I never tried to follow. Sometimes I still wonder if I did the right thing, if I should have just walked away quietly instead of fighting. But then I remember, silence only feeds injustice. The truth is, I didn't fight them out of hate. I fought because I finally learned that love doesn't mean surrender. And as I sit here tonight, in the home I nearly lost, I finally understand something I wish I had known years ago. Sharing doesn't mean giving away your soul. It means knowing where love ends and self-respect begins.